The best global movie of 2023 was the highly anticipated Killers of the Flower Moon. This film represents the Native American Osage people who originated from Missouri and the Osage River. The president forced them to leave their lands for a strange place in Oklahoma, a land of famine and hungry wolves at night. To the Osage, fire was seen as the father and the moon as the mother. They cherished the flower moon, which symbolized a prairie blooming with flowers, as if it was a source of life watching over the earth. While struggling on this barren land, they suddenly found oil beneath it. Making the Osage one of the wealthiest groups on the planet. They had the most luxury cars in America, attracting many white people who came to seek their fortune. The Osage were served by white chauffeurs, which was unimaginable in a Western world rife with discrimination against Native Americans. The train stations were bustling, oil companies were recruiting, and everyone was focused on getting rich. Let's meet the killer. After leaving the military, Hart joins his uncle Hale, who doesn't drill for oil but raises cattle and sheep on his land. Hale believes that only farming can sustain wealth permanently, and his wealth and lifestyle make Hart envious.
Wow, that's good.
Hale notes that the Osage don't like talking much. They make you feel like you need to break the silence, especially after drinking. They quietly observe you, understanding you. The Osage might be the smartest and most beautiful people in the world, but tragically, many are dying mysteriously. This tribe, fond of flowers and the moon, faces a killer. No investigations are conducted into these deaths, with some happening in broad daylight and children being taken away. The sheriff concludes these as suicides. In contrast to the deaths, business booms. Whites sell aggressively to the wealthy Osage. A photo costs $30, then $40, as the Osage have plenty of money to spend without worrying about small amounts. Hart's uncle even advised the Osage people that if their car had a flat tire or broke down, they shouldn't bother fixing it. They should just buy a new one. Proudly, Hart's friend boasted to him about marrying a local woman of pure Osage lineage. Marrying an Osage meant he would have inheritance rights, and if all her family members died, he would be the sole heir. These white men, with their handsome looks, attracted Native American women. After marriage, they would engineer accidents to cause their deaths, so they could inherit the wealth alone. This is the origin of the title, Killers of the Flower Moon. The killers were these white men, eager for wealth. Hart, who drove Osage girls around every day, quickly gained the favor of Molly with his handsome appearance. Hart's uncle was pleased that Molly had pure Osage lineage. If they married and followed the right path, the wealth would naturally fall into the family's hands, making it a wise investment.
That's how you are.
I don't know what you said, but it must have been Indian for handsome devil.
Molly asked Hart if he was with her just for the money. Hart replied that he was lazy and only saw money as a means to sleep in the day and party at night. Molly's sister warned her that she was just being used for her money. Molly admitted she wanted money, but more importantly, she wanted to settle down. Her younger sister mentioned that Hart's uncle was wealthy, implying that he was not after money, but genuine affection. Molly was happy to hear this, but these naive girls were unaware of the impending attack they would face. The movie depicts the tragic fate of Molly's family, highlighting the cruel destiny of the Osage. Molly had a mother, a sister, and two younger sisters. The youngest sister died suddenly, and her white husband Smith lost his inheritance rights. To regain them, Smith married Molly's other sister, making him a rival of Hart. This family had 3 couples, whose intricate relationships would be central to the unfolding drama. The first couple was Molly's sister Anna and her husband Byron, who was also Hart's brother. The second couple was Molly and Hart, and the third was the younger sister and Smith. All 3 men were in competition. The story revolves around their tactics to determine who would be the ultimate inheritor. Molly's mother suddenly saw an owl, which in Native American culture symbolizes death. She lamented that her daughters had married white men, likening it to inviting wolves into the home. She soon passed away, leaving only the 3 sisters behind. The eldest sister, Anna, and her husband Byron were at odds. Byron, unable to endure this life, stayed in the marriage only for the money. One night, a drunken Anna mysteriously disappeared and was found the next day with a gunshot wound to her head, shocking everyone. Byron had a perfect alibi, as he was at Molly's house overnight with his brother Hart. Simultaneously, other Osage were being killed. The tribal chief angrily declared that the whites had taken their land and women, describing them as idle vagabonds and noting the lack of police assistance. He called for resistance, as it was their land and homeland. The tribe decided to inform the president and hired a private detective, to which Hart's uncle generously added $1,000, earning local respect. At Anna's funeral, Hart buried all her treasures with her, appearing generous and sentimental. However, in reality, after the burial, he and his accomplice secretly exhumed the grave and stole the treasures. Hart's greed didn't stop. He concocted another plan with his accomplice Bly. The idea was to have Bly steal Hart's car and then claim insurance money, benefiting both. Unfortunately, Bly was soon caught by the police. Luckily, Hart's uncle, aware of the situation, warned Bly not to implicate Hart. He then summoned Hart, demanding he kneel and be reprimanded. The uncle criticized Hart for not controlling Molly, who had hired a private detective and collaborated with the tribe to involve the congressman. The uncle insisted that Hart must regain control and secure the inheritance. The uncle then revealed his ruthless tactics. First, kill the congressman. And second, eliminate the private detective. After these steps, the situation quickly calmed down. Next, the uncle brought insulin for Molly to treat her diabetes. At that time, insulin was so expensive that only 5 people in the world could afford it. However, Molly suspected something was wrong with the medicine. Hart, angered by her distrust, lamented that he had been working tirelessly for the family, acting as doctor, nurse, housekeeper, and nanny, yet she still didn't trust him. Molly was left speechless and had no choice but to accept the treatment and trust her husband.
No one's gonna hurt you, I'm afraid.
The uncle's next target was Henry, a Native American with severe depression and alcoholism. The uncle took meticulous care of Henry, which even moved Hart, until the uncle revealed he had bought a $25,000 insurance policy on Henry, which could be cashed after the new year. The key was to keep Henry alive until then. Shockingly, the uncle also revealed a secret to Hart. Henry was Molly's first husband. This revelation made Hart jealous, especially as Molly was already pregnant. Upon hearing the news of the pregnancy, the uncle was surprised. Henry also came to congratulate them, and Molly greeted him with a light handshake, causing Hart to feel uncomfortable. The uncle scolded Hart, questioning his decision to have a child at such a time, wondering if he wanted another heir. Hart expressed more concern about Henry being Molly's first husband, and therefore a potential threat to their inheritance. Convinced by Hart's reasoning, the uncle tacitly agreed to deal with the situation. Hart then approached a man with a big beard, telling him that the uncle needed someone eliminated. The bearded man initially refused, saying he didn't kill people, but when Hart mentioned the target was a Native American, the situation hinted at a potential change in the man's decision. The bearded man and Henry both enjoyed drinking, and they quickly became friends. However, Henry had no idea that his new friend would betray him by shooting him in the back. The bearded man's lack of intelligence was evident as he shot Henry from behind, making it impossible to pass off as a suicide. More absurdly, he brought the gun back to Hart, creating a trail leading directly to them. The incident caused an uproar in the town. The Native Americans hung lights at night to avoid being shot by whites lurking in the darkness. People started relocating, fearful and suspicious of each other, but the plan continued, with the next target being Smith and Molly's sister. The uncle recommended an explosives expert named Ash to Hart, with the bearded man being the only link to Ash. Despite his reluctance, Hart had to collaborate with the bearded man again, but no one anticipated another disaster. The bearded man first contacted Ash, a handsome man with a woman's name. One night, while Hart was in bed with his wife, a huge explosion occurred at Smith and Molly's sister's house. The plan was to make it look like a gas explosion, but the bearded man and Ash used too much dynamite, causing a massive blast. Molly's sister lay peacefully on the floor, like a sleeping angel, but her entire back was gone, revealing the gruesome reality of the explosion. Molly and her children hid in the basement. Upon hearing the news of her sister's death, Molly let out a cry of pain. Her family was being systematically destroyed. First, her youngest sister, then her elder sister, followed by her mother, and now her only remaining sister. Molly was the sole survivor in her family. Hart watched his grieving wife, and no one knew what he was thinking. This latest tragedy incited outrage among the Osage people, who collectively traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with the president. Molly tearfully told the president that the Osage Nation was being murdered, the police were doing nothing, and her mother and sisters were all dead. She pleaded for help, saying that many Osage were being killed over oil and money. The president merely replied with a thank you, leaving Molly disappointed and fearful of returning home without any solution. However, unbeknownst to her, the United States government established one of the most formidable investigative teams in history in response to these events, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. Meanwhile, Molly's uncle continued his nefarious plans. He handed Hart a bottle of medicine to inject into the insulin for Molly. Hart was torn and kept questioning himself, unsure of what to do next in this escalating situation. Molly confided in her pastor, expressing her fear and reluctance to eat anything from her home. When the pastor asked if she knew who was harming her, Molly didn't answer, perhaps unwilling to share her suspicions. Despite her fears, she still trusted Hart, allowing only him to administer her insulin injections. Molly, lying weakly in bed, had a vision of an owl, just like her mother had. This ominous sign appeared just as Hart approached, resembling the Grim Reaper. The next morning, Hart was startled by a knock at the door. It was Tom, an agent from the FBI. This marked the climax of the movie, where the audience anticipates how the villains will be brought to justice. Hart was visibly nervous upon seeing Tom, stating that his wife was unwell and asking the agent to return another day. Tom didn't insist and left. After Tom's departure, Hart, in a state of panic, rushed to find his uncle. His frantic demeanor was so evident that even the FBI agent, observing from a distance, could sense it. The uncle grabbed Hart, urging him to stay calm amidst the escalating tension. The FBI agents then visited the tribal chief, who expressed how in the past they would fight their visible enemies, knowing exactly whom to target. But now, their enemies were hidden in the shadows. He questioned whether the United States would care about the Osage if not for the $20,000 in cash given to them. Tom, the FBI agent, didn't respond to this. Their next target was Hart's uncle, who was calmly shaving. The uncle suggested they question the sheriff instead, as he was busy. Tom didn't insist and left. Once Tom was gone, the uncle began to eliminate all obstacles. First, he set up Bridge, the man who had stolen Hart's car, by giving him an address to rob, which was a trap. Bridge's accomplice was killed, and Bridge was arrested by the police. Then there was Ash, the man who blew up Molly's sister's house. The uncle used the same tactic, giving Ash a robbery address. However, the uncle had already tipped off the store owner, leading to Ash's downfall. The third target was the cooperative sheriff, who knew too much. Following this, the uncle forced Hart to sign an agreement stating that if anything happened to Hart, all his inheritance would go to the family. Hart signed under duress. Tom, the FBI agent, witnessed all of this. The reason he initially met with Hart and his uncle was to steer them into action, to see what they would do when they felt threatened. At night, all the FBI agents gathered at the uncle's farm to exchange information. The first topic of discussion was Molly's sister, Anna. On the night of her incident, someone had seen her husband, Alan, with a man named Morrison, who were observed taking her away.